All right, go.
Hey, welcome to Lone Star Legacy episode 10. Tonight is part one of our Eternal Weekend recap discussion. On this episode, we're going to be discussing Legacy Champs. As I believe later this week, we're going to have some other teammates talk about old school, vintage, and more broadly, just kind of the social side of things, Eternal Weekend.
That's the part that I did really well at.
Yep, that'll be Sam's specialty. I'm Stu. You've heard me before. That was Sam. He's also on. Joining us is Sean Liu, who you might remember from our Deathrite Shaman cast.
Howdy.
And Joe Kinkton, who's a first-timer on the cast.
Ooh, I'm Joe.
Did Joe perform the best of all of us in Legacy?
No, Sean had a better record, I'm pretty sure.
No, Stu did better than me.
Okay.
Nah, Sam did better.
Stu's record was quite nice.
Yeah. Yep. No, we'll dive into that, but yeah, I finished 69th, and I think Sean, you were 70 something.
Yeah, I didn't.
And
Check
Joe,
the final number.
where you finished out exactly.
It's way down. I dropped it round 10 or after round 10. Didn't hang around the 11th.
We'll be diving into that.
Joe, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a what do we got here? We got a Odell Rupture, fresh grind ale, nice and fresh squeezed hops. There we go. There's my beer analysis.
Odell makes good shit.
Yeah, they do.
I'm abusing Jameson by mixing it with Coca-Cola because it was the last mixable liquor I had in my apartment.
There you go.
And then after that, I'll be upgrading to Port Charlotte.
I'm on a Shipyard Pumpkinhead, which I have strong associations with when I was living in Boston, and it's like getting towards fall. So
I have some 3-year-old Shipyard Pumpkinhead in my fridge you can have because it's been
There
there
you
for 3 years.
I'm there.
Ooh, that sounds good.
So yeah, I think what we want to do tonight is give our overall impression of the Legacy side of this weekend. Before we get into Legacy, what did you guys do before Legacy Champs? Did you play any other events or have anything organized going on?
I, of course, played Old School and Vintage Champs. I played a Legacy side, which is where I got one of my 2 match wins this weekend. And other than that, I was, like you said, we'll be getting into the social aspect, especially in the next episode. But I was mostly there to hang out, like to the point that I might not play in Champs next year.
I believe you have a rant that you're brewing on that. But that could be next episode.
Yes, that will be next episode. But I was mostly hanging out prior to Legacy.
Yeah. Yeah, I played Old School with you. If anyone's interested in my full how the tournament went, I did a pretty lengthy tournament report that's up on the source and the Mana Dream. So
yeah, it's pretty good. I'm currently editing it to also put it on the website.
Yeah,
but it's 9 goddamn pages long, so I haven't finished editing it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, so I played Old School on Thursday and Vintage Champs on Friday. I went 5-3 in Old School on Goblins and 5-5 in Vintage on White Eldrazi.
Nice.
Joe, how about you?
Let's see. I played. So I didn't do Vintage or Old School. Played Legacy side events on Friday when I got in, and then I went. What's my final record? 6-4 and then dropped with blue-white home deck. But I got off to a pretty good start there early on, and then kind of fell apart when the matches got a little longer. So, yeah, did better than I thought I would.
Decks can be taxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sean, how about you?
This is kind of embarrassing. What was the question?
What did you do at Eternal Weekend before Champs?
Oh, yeah. So I got in a little bit later than everybody else. I know a lot of you guys played Old School, sweet format. The event of the Omni looked like it was awesome, and the Chaos Orb deck box looks incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, all I did was I played I think I came in on Thursday, played like a Legacy side event, and scrubbed out of that one pretty horribly. And then I played my first sanctioned Vintage event on Friday, and decided I never want to play Dredge again in my life.
Interesting. I would love to hear more about that at some time.
I'll definitely tell you. Maybe not right now.
I think, that might be something we discuss further. Sean and I, after Legacy, were chatting a bit about our experiences with Sanctioned Vintage, and we had thoughts, but
it's certainly something we can tack onto the end if we've got some extra time.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. I do want to add my records in Old School and Vintage were 3-3 in Old School, with a win against Counterburn, a win against the Buy, and a win against a no-show. And I asked, Jaco round 3 would not let me concede to the Buy, so I was denied the ability to go 0-3. And then in Vintage, I went 1-5. With my win being a no-show, also in round 3, and I asked the judge if I could concede to the no-show. And while I believe it is technically possible in the DCI reporter, she said that I cannot, so I was again denied the ability to go 0-3.
Brutal.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Once you're on a track, you might as well just fucking go full throttle down that track.
I admire your commitment, but less so your cause.
So, leading up to Legacy Champs, what were you guys kind of expecting for the event? Was you three all play in Houston, and I play here in Austin. I think there's some differences with our meta, but were you predicting anything in particular?
Are you asking what we thought the metagame would look like going into the tournament?
I am.
Okay. So as Stuart was saying, Joe, Sam, and I all play at the same card shop over here in Houston, Asgard Games. And our meta is just kind of a hodgepodge. I wouldn't say we have any patterns or any people who show up. I play the same deck every time, but for the most part, everyone's just kind of playing whatever they want to.
We have both the advantage and disadvantage that many of the people in the community have lots of decks. Mm-hmm. That means that people can play anything. That also means that people will play anything. So, for example, Sean had to quit playing Infect for a while because people were playing main deck Malira because, there's a 1 in 12 chance you're going to hit it each round.
Yeah, that is what happened. And so I luckily own cards to play Rogue Delver and Nausea Tendrils and other decks. But for the most part, our shop is just you get a lot of experience against a lot of different other decks. But weirdly enough, I think the only person playing the 4-color check pile was Sam.
Yeah.
For some reason, no one really wanted to play against that. Nobody wanted to play that deck.
I picked that deck. I didn't want to play that deck. My choices were basically between Tin Fins, which I determined to be bad in the current Deathrite Shaman dominant format, Miracles, which one of my friends was like, nah, if you haven't played that deck in a month, that deck is now terrible. And then I was like, well, if this is potentially Deathrite Shaman's last hurrah, then I might as well play what I think is the best Deathrite Shaman deck, which was Check Pile. And that is as much thought of the metagame as I went into it because the source is a garbage fire and our store is unreliable for the wider metagame.
But I think that's accurate anyway. Jack was really the deck getting a lot of buzz leading into it. And there's also obviously a lot of talk about Grixis Delver. Did anyone here pick a deck? Well, Sam picked the deck that he just thought was the best. Sean and Joe, did you pick a deck that you thought could beat the meta, or did you just pick what you wanted to play?
I definitely picked something I thought was going to be strong in the current meta. I switched. I've been playing Food Chain a lot leading up to this, and I actually switched to a blue-white home deck purely because I feel like there's a lot of decks too reliant on Graveyard. With the number of Deathrights around, and actually I was surprised. I got really lucky. I faced Reanimator 3 times in Legacy Champs, which I don't know. If you're running 4 main deck Helms, Reanimator's a pretty easy matchup. So
and playing a 2-card Money in Legacy is a bold call at $70 entry fee.
Fair enough.
Main deck Rest in Peace will definitely just get people sometimes. And I know for a fact my deck doesn't have an answer to Energy Field at all in the main deck. If that hits the board, I'm done.
Oh yeah, I was standing behind Joe when he had a turn 3 kill. which was turn 2 rest in peace, turn 2 energy field, and his opponent just scooped his shit up.
Yeah, because like some decks just can't deal with that. Imagine if you're playing like Rug Delver and like main deck, someone goes like turn 1 or like turn 2 rest in peace, turn 3 energy field. You just scoop to that because you have no way to get those enchantments off the board, and you have no way. Well, yeah, I guess it's
like I feel like Rug Delver's best out in that situation, if that's game 1, is to make the game go super long, and then win game 2 and 3 really fast. That's like the only reason to not scoop there.
Even then, I think you just scoop to.
Yeah, it's
the same thing. You just scoop that one. Yeah, I don't know.
So, Joe, you'd been playing Food Chain for a while. When did you switch to Helm? Was it specifically in preparation for this, or had you been playing it and then thought maybe it could work for you?
It's a bit of both. I mean, like I switched probably a month ago, so pretty recently. But a lot of it was honestly my wife wanted to play a blue-black kind of land still focused deck, and so she was using all of our C's, and I wanted her to play.
You should have told me. I would have played a way worse deck for Joanne. But I do remember though you've been playing with this idea for a couple of months, because I sent you when that was like a deck that like top 8 at Star City opens. I played that deck and I sent you some lists, and you were like, there were a couple where you looked at it and were like, yeah, this is a lot better than the deck I built.
That's basically exactly what happened. Yeah, I pretty much just took one of those, like, let's go back 7 years and play exactly that deck. So,
I'll say another thing on Sean's deck choice, and this is a thing that people have discussed in terms of large tournaments, is Sean, regardless of other metagame decisions, definitely picked a deck that he's very, very, very good at. So, for example, I could have played Miracles, and I would have played it better than I played Check Pile, but I thought Check was a better deck. But Sean is so miles ahead, I think, of most Infect players that that's a good choice, even if it's not great in the metagame.
I mean, I think regardless of where I am, like, positioned against other people, like me personally, I know that deck much better than anything else. And so at the end of the day, it's just like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Even if I'm like the best Infect player there, or more than likely somewhere like in the middle of the pack, or even like the worst Infect player, like that's the deck I'm going to play because, and like Legacy is the format, people say it. I think it's like a little bit less true now, but it's still very much a format that like rewards experience. And so, having those reps on that deck, like going to every matchup thinking like, okay, I know my game plan, my sideboarding strategy, what cards I need to watch out for, and like what random spice might come up that like hurts my deck. I think that's like more valuable than just like, I'm going to play the best deck right now.
As an example of that, last Thursday, I was playing at Asgard, and someone came up behind me after the match, was like, you missed all of this stuff you could have done. And I was like, no, I saw that, but my opponent didn't. And my opponent's on the same deck, so if I do it, he might realize that he's also missing it. That's why I didn't do it. And that's an example of like a format knowledge kind of thing. It's like, I know that's there, but I can't let him know it.
Yeah. No, I definitely... you get into these weird corner cases. I think Chalice in particular is one of the cards I'm thinking of, but like sometimes you'll not let things be countered by Chalice, but like you just jam stuff into it, or like you cast something.
While you have a Deathrite Shaman on board,
or something like that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's countered," and like you don't say anything, you just scoop the cards up, right? Like I guess the example would be like Vines of the Vastwood, like CMC 2, right? It's like I would cast it into like his Chalice on 2, for example, and he would just be like, oh, that's countered, right? And like obviously, or I don't know if you guys know, but like the CMC doesn't change when you kick it. You just scoop them up right there. And then like maybe game 2 or game 3, the same thing happens again. He's like, it's countered. You're like, no, that's not the case, obviously.
Oh, that's an interesting play. That you just basically go, I don't think I can win from here, so I'll scoop with you having incorrect knowledge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've definitely played games of Magic before. It gets really bad. Like you sometimes get to a point like you go to like 6 or 5 cards, no lands, scry, don't see anything put on the bottom. You draw, and like the game doesn't turn into how can I like overcome this insurmountable like advantage the opponent has of like +3 cards and like a tempo. They're making their land drops, and you're just kind of like dirtling. And then it becomes a game of like, what cards can I discard to like mislead them about what I'm playing?
Yeah, for sure.
Like I don't know if this has happened to anybody else, but I'm just like, okay, Brainstorm goes first, and then Force of Will. I guess we can discard Ponder, and now you got to start thinking about like which fetches do I want to discard.
No, for sure. I mean, like I've talked on previous podcasts about like, if you're gonna mull to like 2 or 3, you might be better off just not playing Magic and letting them show you as much of their deck as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like on the subject of like another like a play like that is I played against a guy who put a chalice on 2, and later played, or no, he had a chalice on 0. He had a chalice on 0, 1, and 2. And he played a Chrome Mox. I'm like, countered. And he was like, shit, I missed it. I was like, no, actually, that's the right play because you have Ensnaring Bridge in your deck.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a format in which, like, leading Underground Sea Ponder could mean, you know, you get rid of, like, only 10% of the decks when you say that, so, or when you lead on that. So, yeah, there's a lot of ways you can keep things pretty up in the air for your opponents.
When I used to play Outpost, I'd always, before the top ban, I'd always try to do a Miracles impression. Like, you know, and if things went bad, I'd scoot before the next round because that was clear you can't win from there. You just basically make them think you're on Miracles. And
turn one island top.
Yeah, exactly.
Could be anything.
There's a lot of examples of that in Vintage, too.
For sure.
Like, I know Ben has a story he likes to sell at Champs, I think it was. He Tez keyed someone out, and or he had Vault Key, and they were like, show me a win con. And he just showed a Tez. And they're like, sweet. So they boarded for like a Steel City Vault deck, and he just like, turn 1 Oath, go.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and I was playing Maverick, which I've been playing for a while now. I thought it was good in the meta, but it was also a deck that I was comfortable playing.
So you've been a long time on that deck, right?
I put it together this spring, and I've been playing basically that since then. So like 6 months probably.
Yeah, I think you know what you're doing. 6 months is like, I would give myself, like, if I knew I had a big tournament coming up and it's like, you need to learn a new deck, I would give myself like maybe 3 months.
In the modern era where people were calling for bans of things in Pirate Stompy before that deck list was even revealed, 6 months is an eternity.
Oh, man. Are we talking about Pirate Stompy on this?
That being said, it is an entire 2% of the history of Magic, that 6 months.
When we were doing our deck reg sheets, like, I had already filled mine out, but I think Patrick and Tim both registered their decks as Pirate Stompy.
That's amazing.
I registered mine as Aleopile parentheses Homelands Uncommon 1 because it was a Leo pile.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It's a 2-mana artifact that you can sack to shock someone.
I'm gonna make sounds of acknowledgement, like I get it, like everybody else.
No, I
does.
played that in Old School this weekend. I had 3 in my sideboard.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I was playing Goblins, and I feel like my deck has a really hard time beating any of their creatures, and I thought it was a good option. I think I Aeoli piled like once, but
That's sweet.
yeah. So before we jump into the tournament itself, one other question. Did you guys, if you had been playing the deck in the time leading up to Champs, did you make any changes for Champs, or did you just like run the list you'd been on?
I switched from a good sideboard to the sideboard that I already owned. I was full on not winning this tournament.
You were the
I also
go ahead.
downgraded from this Korean Blue Blast to a Hydroblast because it was in English.
That doesn't make any sense.
I'll be honest, I get those two mixed up. I know one of them can target non-red permanents.
The Hydro and Pyroblast can target anything, but they only counter or destroy if the thing is the necessary color.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, there's that small distinction, and I know like it comes up between the two. That, you know, people always like to throw out, oh, you can't misdirect this one, and it's like, well, who gives a shit? Like that's never gonna come up.
It matters more in Vintage, where with a Mentor out, you can be like Pyroblast my Lotus.
Yeah.
Make a token.
Oh, okay. Sorry, quick detour. But I had an amazing play. No, I didn't. But I had a great play where the guy was on Jund at our weekly. This has nothing to do with Eternal Weekend. And he goes, Bloodbraid Elf, Cascade into Pyroblast. And then there are no blue permanents anywhere. So he goes, do I want it to play? Like, do I want to cast it, or do I want it at the bottom of my deck? And he's like, well, I have a Deathrite and if Tarmogoyf can play, yeah, I'll target your, like, forest. It's a fairy's response. Counter Pyroblast, draw 2 cards. He gets pretty upset, and then I proceed to lose that because I have nothing on board, and he's playing Johnny.
Was this Johnny?
It was not Johnny. It was Kevin. Yeah, but that was probably one of the happiest games I've lost in recent memory.
Yeah, I don't ever want to root against Jund, but that's awesome.
I'm trying to convince Joanne to buy into Jund.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen.
Because Ben has all the Black Legends enchantments, and I want to get rid of my Tarmogoyfs.
Wait, are you trying to... Okay, we'll talk later. I might be looking for Tarmogoyfs, but we'll talk later.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I just made $200 on a live stream.
Speaking of Tarmogoyf, that was I didn't end up really making any changes to my list, but I considered adding a Tarmogoyf to it because a few days before the tournament, I got really stomped by Check Pile, and I was good 2-mana beater in my deck that like lower my curve. I didn't do it.
How good is Tarmogoyf against a Deathrite Shaman?
It's good against.
I guess it's good if they're pumping shit into their graveyard like Check Pile does.
I think it's fine. I think it's not amazing in that matchup because of Strix, but
that too.
I didn't end up playing it, so you know.
Yeah, it just seems
not that many good 2-mana beaters in green, like Grim Flayer.
Johnny plays Scavenging Ooze to some surprising success.
No, Scooz is great. I just don't have a Cradle, and I feel like Scooz is a lot worse without Cradle.
Scooz also counters Deathrite Shaman, which is definitely relevant right now.
Yeah, I had a Scooz in my board, and I got paired up against Dredge, and it did a lot of work in that matchup, but I don't know about a main deck if you don't have Cradle.
Interesting.
No, that's a good point.
So anyway, so that's kind of where we were all at. I think we played decks that we were comfortable piloting, except for Sam.
I was comfortable piloting it. I was just like, I probably came across as salty to a lot of opponents. I was just like, this deck is so fucking stupid. Like, Sean, you watched me play Check Pile, and every time I fetched, you were like more and more annoyed at what the mana base in that deck looks like.
I mean, I think everybody listening to this will know what that mana base looks like, but it is just one of...
I had to buy a fucking Cons because they had no Onslaught in stock. I had to buy a Cons Bloodstained Mire.
Were you playing Blood Moon, Jack?
Also, I had to buy a Badlands.
Yeah, those are
just like
now.
It's like the second worst land. No, I actually got it pretty cheap, and I got it off a guy locally. It was sweet. I PayPal'd him, and it showed up like 18 hours later.
Oh, sweet. So amazing. This is what, $90 now. They were like what, 40?
Oh, I paid like 60 for it.
But yeah, they were like 40 a year or two ago. It's insane. So yeah, that's where we're at going into it. So let's get to Champs itself.
I do want to talk about my. I did play a really interesting game in one of the grinders. I played against Death and Taxes, a guy named Richard, who I later played in Champs. He was a super nice guy. He brought in Absolute Law against me.
Great card.
Which is
your deck.
All creatures have pro red. And I'm like, that's fucking great for me. I play 3 red cards. Then I proceeded to draw in order Kolagun's Command, Lightning Bolt, Kolagun's Command. So after the match, he's talking. He's a super friendly guy. Really enjoyed playing him. He asked me what I thought about some of his decisions and so forth. I said, I think Absolute Law is the wrong choice against my deck. I was like, I will say that it won you that game, but I think it's the wrong choice against my deck. And then when I played him in Champs, he told me he didn't sideboard it in. I was like, well, fuck. I guess I shouldn't have helped you.
I always like to talk to my opponents afterwards. I mean, of course, it's like good to exchange perspectives, but I think the more honest reason I'm doing it is just because I want breakers to be better. And if they play against somebody on the same deck as me, I want to be like, no, this is what you need to be playing. This is how you play the match. This is how you sideboard. Now go forth and help my breakers. But I like how that came back to bite you in the ass.
Well, what's funny is, I mean, I don't know how much it hurt me, but like it's funny that at an event that size, there are a lot of people who won't want to talk to you afterwards because, you know, I mean, Check Pile is what, a $4,000 deck. You can't really just be like, oh shit, I'll switch from Death and Taxes to Check Pile because the meta is weird at Eternal Weekend.
Before we jump topics,
so with that detour, yeah. So let's just hop into the event itself. Sam, this is probably the fastest for you to answer, so you can start off. What were your matchups and what were your wins, draws, and losses?
All right, round one, I played Eugene on Dragon Stompy. He was a very fun opponent, and at the end of our talk, when we have funny play stories, I will be discussing him. I got beaten by him in 3. I played Death and Taxes and lost in 2. Then I had a bye, and looks like I played some sort of storm because my life total went from 19 to dead. Then I played another death. Oh, I played the same guy as I played in the grinder on Death and Taxes, and I did not do any damage to him.
Not even like a bolt or a K command or something.
And then I went and had beers with OS Dan from San Antonio.
Oh, nice! Yeah, it was cool. It was cool getting to chat with him this weekend too.
It's also cool. We work in similar fields, and he's actually one of my biggest customers. So we chat online all the time, and I'd actually never met him. So he was really cool to meet.
Cool.
And there we go. My tournament report's done, other than telling a funny story about playing against Eugene in round 1.
Stu, you were right. That was quick.
Yeah, I knew. Like I said at the beginning of the call, I have a long tournament report up on the internet if people are interested in any more detail than this. But quickly, I ended up going 7-3-1. My wins were to Bug Delver, Grixis Delver, DNT, Elves, Dredge, Ant, and Rug Delver.
So you beat 3 Deathrite Shaman decks.
Well, yeah, I think I had a few bad matchups, but a lot of my wins were positive matchups. I think all the Delvers are decks I want to be paired against, and I think DNT and Elves are fine too. Dredge and Ant are a little more sketchy, but I'm a Deathrite Shaman deck too, so
I was gonna say, for those who haven't read it yet, you are on a junk build.
Junk Maverick.
Which is to say that your build is garbage.
Yep. It's also splashing black. My losses were to Food Chain, Infect, and Big Eldrazi, of which Food Chain is like a deck that I can never really figure out, so I don't ever mind when I lose to it.
You're supposed to use those surgical extractions to hit their
Don't say Mistel. Don't say Mistel.
They're Mistel Griffins, yeah, for sure. Mistel Griffin.
Well, it is tough. Like, Surgical is one of my best anti-combo pieces in that deck, and it's just terrible.
Oh, I see you're playing 7th edition Duresses.
Yep. I have 7th edition Duresses, Birds of Paradises, and Basics.
Would you like some Pete Venters signed 7th edition Duresses?
Stop trying to sell shit on the podcast.
No, I mean, I'll just ship them to him. You can have them.
So yeah, Food Chain, I don't really mind when I lose that. Infect, I should win. I had a somewhat of a punt that I think punished me pretty hard in that. And Big Eldrazi I have no experience with. It feels like a deck I should beat up on because I attack mana bases, but he completely stomped me. So
were they running the mana rocks and Voltaic Key, or?
I don't know if he had key. If he did, it didn't show up. But both games, game 1, he just had triple Smasher, which not many decks can beat that, but I definitely couldn't. And game 2, I double wasted him, and he just continued to hit his land drops, and then made Wormcoil Smasher. So, and my draw was to Elves, which I am confident if we hadn't gone to time, I probably would have won the match, but we did. Our first 2 games took almost the entire time, so game 3 we only got a couple turns in. How about you, Sean? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm still trying to remember what I played round 8, and for the life of me, it's just not coming back to me.
You got to take better notes.
I didn't take any notes.
Joe's right. There's like a 25% chance it was Grixis Delver.
No, I remember all the Grixis Delvers I played against because they were awful matchups. But no, I started trying to recall this as soon as you guys mentioned notes right before we went on air. So, to the best of my knowledge, I played against round 1 4-color Loam, and then round 2 Bug Control. I guess I'll have to go bit by bit. It was like a For Color Loam, I played against twice, and then I played against 2 Grixis Delvers, 1 Blue-Red Delver, and then 1 Death and Taxes, 1 Infect, 1 Blue-Black Landstill, I think. That was kind of a bizarre one. Yeah.
Spicy. Was he playing the blue-black manland?
No, so like I didn't actually see a standstill as a thing. But the guy, he's from Spain. I do not remember his name, but I didn't want to talk to him too much about his deck because I'll be frank, I think there was a bit of a language barrier there. But he goes like game 1 was like he duresses me off of a basic swamp. And then he like turn 2's like Underground Sea Ponder, and then I kill him.
So you have him on like Reanimator or Ant or something.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I rolled a 5, got him on like turn 2 or 3 or whatever, and then I boarded into as if I was fighting against Reanimator or Ants, just like counter magic and then like bringing some surgicals. Because like basic swamp into duress kind of seems like that. No, the deck is like 8 Snapcasters and like 12 Fatal Pushes, and it was just like that was probably my worst loss of the entire tournament.
I encountered so many people that that was like, please, for the love of God, can I have your deck list? And this guy is one of them, apparently.
It was, yeah, I mean, it was pretty sweet. I also just lost to like Mishra's Factories out the wazoo, which was kind of funny because I think that happened the day before as well in Vintage, but I wasn't expecting it during Legacy Champs.
Yeah, that makes
sense. Fairy Conclave?
Oh, I didn't see a Fairy Conclave. I didn't see anything to suggest it was standstill other than
Mishra's Factory.
Yeah, just a guess.
No, I will say,
factories in that deck. It has to be blue-black standstill.
It could be blue-black Pox, because a lot of Pox decks play factory. No, I'm just trying to come up with an answer to the question.
Pox plays factory. This is true.
On that, real quick, on the note of deck lists that I really want, if anyone knows the guy who played Jeskai Ascendancy in the main event, please, 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 please send me his deck list, Sam at LoneStarLhurgoyfs.com. I have to have it. I know he's playing the Kamigawa 2 blue to draw 3 and discard 3 at end of turn.
Oh, sick.
That card is fantastic. I have a foil copy that was only ever going to be used for Doomsday, but then they banned top, so that's not going to happen either.
Poor Doomsday.
So, Sean, what was your final record?
Final record was 7-4. I want to say I appreciate you for keeping us on topics too, but yeah, I don't know. I guess like some like thoughts about the entire tournament. Like, and Stu and I think we're the only people at the end of round 11 who were still there the final round. Neither of us saw any check pile throughout the entire day, which was kind of funny. I know we were talking a little bit earlier about like what changes you make to your deck leading into it, and it kind of slipped my mind at the time, but like. I'm firmly of the opinion that Spell Snare is the key to beating that deck, at least from the perspective of Infects. Because
interesting.
I have to say, I also switched to 2 Spell Snare main, actually based on your recommendation. It pulled overtime. Like, I mean, the number of young Pyromancers I countered with Spell Snare was absurd. I mean, it was. Yeah. If nothing else, that alone.
Most of the check decks aren't playing Pyromancer.
Oh, no,
it's usually the Honda Civic decks.
Yeah, but still, like Grixis, I played Grixis. I actually didn't play against check pile either, but like I played against Grixis 3 times, and each time like it.
And I think like having clean answers to like, I mean, the check pile plays so many 2-drops that are just like, if this resolves, you're gonna have a bad time. Like Baleful Strix is a chump blocker that blocks anything and trades with it, and also draws you a card. Hymn to Turok just reads target player gets 2 for 1, unless they're hellbents. You know, Snapcaster Mage. Some lists are playing like blue counterspell, and then like for my deck in particular, cards like Marsh Casualties are just a gigantic pain in the ass.
Well, and like I'll say, I'm shooting the shit and having a good time in all of my matches, which leads people to maybe talk to me more than they might otherwise. And multiple people are like, "Your deck has just." It's all answers. I'm like, that. It's like, yes, it is all answers. The problem with the deck is that it's all answers, and answers don't win the game. It's like, cool, I killed 25 guys, and I have a Deathrite Shaman on board, and you're at 20.
Yeah, I mean, like, it takes you 20 turns to get there with Baleful Strix or whatever, but, like, I mean, if it's ugly and it works, it still works.
Sean, did you say you did run Spell Snare or no?
I did, yeah. I ran 1 main, 1 side, which is even that, like, on the one hand, I feel it's a little bit ambitious. I've never seen an Infect list running that, in large part because I don't think the meta has ever called for it. But at the same time, had I hit more check pile lists, I might have wanted to add a third one in somewhere. And you get to these weird situations where it's like, even outside of the check pile matchup, I know that's what I've been talking about a lot, but a lot of the 2-drops that Infect in particular cares about, like Dark Confidant is kind of a beating. I don't think I ever come back from that. Sylvan Library is also
I don't know that I've seen a Dark Confidant in play in Legacy outside of Johnny in at least a year.
I don't know. Dave London's been playing. He's been playing a lot of them lately.
Oh, that's true. He's playing junk.
Yeah. I played against 4-color Loam twice during this tournament, and both times it's just like rolling Dark Confidants. Like they would always do this thing where they swing into my Glistener Elephant. I'm like, yes, for the love of God, please trade 1 for 1. And it's like, okay, play another 2 past turn. I'm just like how do you? But Dark Confidant, Sylvan Library, Stoneforge Mystic / Yumi's Always Gente, Zealous Persecution, Golgari Charm. These are all just tough cards to beat. And I think like to a lesser extent for other decks, like Spell Snare, like a lot of the Rug Delver lists are playing 2 main deck copies of Spell Snare now. And I think that's like something that's really going to be necessary. And
the card it's really, really sweet.
Yeah.
And it's one of those that no one ever sees coming, because like if you had 2 up, they might be like, this is gonna eat a counter spell, but like, no, I have 1 up, fuck you.
Yeah, it's like Flusterstorm or Bust, or even against like random like Chalice decks or something. I don't know. I think the card's got a lot of use. On a less serious note, it also hits Days.
That's a real thing.
I didn't know about that.
I think I've done that against you.
Why would you do that?
I can think of one reason that's a thing, which would be if you have 2 lands, I guess you could be like +1 to storm count for Flusterstorm.
Yes, we're not all playing Spell Snare in our... Oh, you said Flusterstorm.
I mean, you asked where it's good.
That's
I
true.
came up with a situation.
I think the term Strictly Better kind of died when Mindslaver was printed. You can always find like weird corner cases.
Mindslaver, Surgical Extraction, Cabal Therapy. There's a couple things like that.
Yeah.
That's why we should all be playing Watery Grave in our Reanimator decks.
That's a sweet card. Blue-Black Death Shadows really got legs.
Blue-Black Death Shadow was doing well at the side events.
Yeah, I played against some side events a couple times.
It's tough to beat.
And I don't know the name of the guy who plays it, but I've seen him at every big Legacy event, and he's super nice to talk to. I have no idea what his name is, and he's like probably follows me on Twitter and now thinks I'm an asshole.
That's fine. You're so famous, you can't be expected to keep track of everybody.
I mean, not really. But whatever.
1-8s are pretty good. Before we go further into that, Jank, Joe, do you want to give us a run through of your tournament?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, I was on Blue White Helm. My wins were, my losses were Lurin, lost twice to Grixis Delver, which those were really close games that I thought I should have pulled off. And then lost to Lands when I just completely was too exhausted to think.
Well, it was a particular Lands player.
Yeah. It was Jarvis Yu, and I was super flustered because I was playing against a pro, and it was round 10, and I conceded with a winning board state.
I mean, this was a thing that, because this was your second big tournament, and this was Joanne's first that we had talked about, was it is a big deal to be able to go all the way. Like, just purely being able to play 11 rounds of Magic is a big part of being able to do well at an event like this.
Well, it's 11 rounds of Magic, and it's also potentially preceded by, previous big events, because there's change.
I mean,
staying up drinking and
Joe and Joanne and I went out, and I was staying across the street, and I went to bed at 12:30. So I imagine that they were on 6 hours of sleep or less.
Yeah, I mean, we ended up. Sean turned in early before Legacy Champs, but Patrick, Tim, and I were up till like 2:30, and we had to get up at 6 or 6:30 the following morning. Yeah, I felt terrible in the morning.
You didn't feel as bad as Kobe.
Yeah, I played him round 2. He was in rough shape.
I had to have a very strict caffeine regimen, which I think went a long way.
I was joking with some of the guys that I roomed with that I brought a CVS in my carry-on, and I was like, "Hey, does anyone want me to bring anything?" And I was like, "Nah, it's cool." And like round 2, like someone's like, "Hey, do you have any allergy meds? Hey, do you have any decongestants? Hey, do you have any ibuprofen?" I was like, "I'll go back to the room."
Yeah, for sure. Even without those added factors, though, once you're at rounds, 8 or 9 or 10, your brain has
Right. Well, that was the thing I used to say about miracles is if you want to play miracles in an event like this, you have to have friends because you have to have someone who's going to go get you a real food, like a sandwich, not a Snickers bar. You have to like have someone who's going to go refill your water bottle or who will be like, hey, I'll run and check the decks, where you're sitting just so you can sit here and relax for another 30 seconds.
You're not talking down about David Lord's Convention Center's concession options, are you? Great chicken tendies, my friend.
As someone who dropped quite early, I thought the food was excellent at the bar nearby.
Now, those chicken tenders really carried me through multiple events. Like
those were solidly edible.
I have seen many people.
Else there.
This was possibly the most common compliment of this event was that the concessions at the venue were shockingly good.
I wouldn't go that far.
Bad concessions before, so
yeah, I think shockingly good in this case means like average.
Yeah,
well, I mean, like most of them are worse than your middle school cafeteria. Yeah, so shockingly good in comparison. Because I was like, I'm not hitting that fucking concession stand. There is a Jimmy John's attached to the building. I'm going to Jimmy John's. Then I went 04 and I had a great burger that had a fucking pierogi on top and like 3 Yinglings.
Is that like a Pittsburgh thing? Because I had a burger with a pierogi at another place.
I think it's that pierogies are a Pittsburgh thing, so why not put them on a burger?
I'm a quarter Polish, so like I'm down with that. Joe, so that was the unfortunate end of your night, but what were your wins? Do you have those?
Yes, let's see. I won against Tin Fins, Black Red Reanimator twice, Grixis Delver, Mono Red Sneak.
I will say the Tin Fins player you beat then dropped, threw up, ate like 6 Tums, 4 ibuprofen, walked to 7-Eleven and bought a gallon of water and drank about half of it. And when I went back to the room at 2, he had just gotten out of bed.
It's interesting because, obviously main deck Rest in Peace is good against all these graveyard decks that you ran into, but at the same time, like Tin Fins and Red Black Reanimator are fast decks. You aren't guaranteed to resolve your Rest in Peace.
Yeah, actually, the Black Red Reanimator was Tin Fins aside, like Kobe was definitely in pretty rough shape, and we were both like we told each other what we were playing the night before, and both like, yeah, I don't remember what the hell you told me. But Black Red Reanimator was actually both of my Black Red Reanimator matches went to game 3. It's purely because they were able to get a fast win. I think one time I missed sideboarded against. Well, I kept a hand I shouldn't have in the sideboard, but I was like, yeah, sure. I've got a swords. I don't have force, but I've got swords. I've got Flusterstorm. I've got turn 2 Rest in Peace, and so like turn 1 Reanimate Grizzlebrand. I'm like, okay, great. I can swords it. Of course, they draw a bunch at turn 2 Reanimate Sire, and that was game. But I think Black Red Reanimator's still definitely favored, but it's not. You have mulligan down the force, and that means you mulligan pretty deep in a lot of cases. So,
but you do have. I mean, like as a guy who's played a lot of Tin Fins, like it's not uncommon for me to keep a hand and be like, cool, like this isn't great, but I am going to kill them on turn 3, and then you just go turn 2 recipes. I'm like, good game.
Yeah.
The only way I can cast Grizzlebrand now is off of Dark Ritual. So
the way God intended.
Yeah. I will say that the Black Red Reanimator games, they cast what's the it's green and 4 or something, but you can, instead of paying this mana cost, you have your opponent gain 6 life, destroy all
Reverent Silence.
Reverent Silence. There we go. I couldn't remember it. That got played on me 3 times in one of the games.
That guy was prepared for 2-card money, which is what I'm calling your deck.
That's fair.
Could have been playing Kavu Predator.
Yeah.
God, what a great card. And copies of Invigorate in that deck.
I love it. Yeah, so that was where we at. So Joe, you finished 6-4 and then dropped, right?
Yeah, I was too exhausted by game 10 to hang around for the 11th round. So,
well, I think a comment everyone made as soon as they were done is how excited they were to have a beer and eat food. So
yeah,
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I will say I did a lot better than I thought I would. I didn't expect to make that leap of a run, so I was pretty happy with it. I definitely
pretty pumped for you.
Yeah, I definitely made some mistakes, like looking back, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, we were on the subject of we were all pretty excited for you. When you were sitting at like table 6, we had an army of people on Twitter with hashtag Eternal Weekend, like, holy shit, rip helmet table 6, get this shit on camera. Oh man, does anyone have this guy's deck? That's like totally like we almost got Stu to sign up for Twitter purely to try and push you. And then he tweeted from the Goyf account. I'm like, that doesn't count.
The only spicier deck I saw all weekend then with yours was that dude playing, I forget who was sitting around watching this, but he was playing Rector, Form of the Dragon, and Moat.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was sick. But
Is this in vintage or
vintage?
I think
Okay.
vintage.
It was in vintage because
a lot more sense of vintage.
it's an Academy Rector banned in Legacy. I don't actually know.
No, it's perfectly legal in Legacy.
It just costs 4.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
flash.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Nick Smith plays it all the time, so they're.
So yeah, the three of us finished out pretty strongly for the day, which I think we were all happy with. We started to touch on this and kind of have throughout, but how did the field kind of compare to your expectations going in?
More Reanimator than I thought. I think it was like Reanimator was the third most played deck, which I was actually really surprised by.
Well, there is. It's worth noting that Reanimator is especially if you don't play all of your duels as Cs, Reanimator can be a budget deck thanks to Premium Deck Series Graveborn. Like most of the deck is in that deck.
But it just seems like, there are other budget options. Why would you pick the one that has such a hard time with Deathrite?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's shocking that there's that many with Deathrite out, and that's the point where I have to go, I mean, maybe it's the only deck those people owned.
Yeah.
Did they lump up black red with blue black?
They did, yeah.
Okay, so I think that's another big part of it.
Yeah, I guess, black red is much better than blue black currently.
I didn't see a blue black Reanimator the entire day, even just looking around.
Well, I mean, as a blue black Reanimator player, there is no blue black Reanimator. It's bug Reanimator now.
Yeah, fair enough.
But like even then, the deck is rough with Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, I've seen Reanimator players main decking Pithing Needles these days.
Yeah, like when I was playing it, generally, if they were playing a Deathrite Shaman deck, your goal was turn 2 Abrupt Decay, turn 3 Reanimation. And hope they don't have Force of Will.
Yeah, definitely wasn't expecting that much Reanimator. As we've kind of said, deck was really the deck getting the most hype going into it, and it existed, but I didn't play against it at all, and it wasn't sitting at the tables near me. I don't know if it was only at the top tables or what, but way less check than I thought there would be, even though there was still a decent percentage of it.
It's also worth noting that this is the type of event that really draws a lot of different people. There's a lot of people who will play the deck they've been playing for 10 years. There's a lot of people who only play Vintage and threw something together. And of decks you can throw together, Check is among the hardest.
That's fair.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not a deck.
Yeah. I mean, I had to go to a vendor and pay $1 each for Marsh Casualties.
Why do you say it like that? Like your inflection is as if it's a big deal.
Because that card is worth 10 cents.
Stu bought a Mox Pearl. I mean, you're not impressing me with your Marsh Casualties.
I have a joke, but I'm going to refrain because I'll sound stupid. As opposed to normal.
I feel like that's only a deck that's easy to put together if you already play Legacy, though. Like, that's not a deck that's easy to put together if you play Vintage.
Yeah, I mean, check is just like 4-color Legacy staples with a fucking weird sideboard.
Yeah. Riley Knight posted an article about Eternal Weekend on Channel Fireball today, or maybe yesterday, and he refers to check pile as like the cards that fall out of your trade binder when you drop it on the floor.
Yeah,
and then you just pick it up and sleeve them up.
The winner of Old School called his deck Trade Binder Rares because he built it like that day out of his binder. And check pile, you look at it, it's if you look at the top 10 non-land cards played in Legacy, it plays 9 of them. It's just a bunch of good cards. And that's why I hated playing it, is like you never feel like you're doing anything. You just like, yeah, I have all this stuff. I mean, like,
I feel like we're getting back into the territory of like
here's how much good stuff there is in that deck. I played 1 Lightning Bolt.
That's got to be like blasphemy or something. I'm not. That just sounds like a deck building Cardinals said.
It was Chris Rush signed beta. So I mean, for what that's worth.
I hate it though. That's such a stupid fucking deck.
Oh no, that was the thing. I was like, I felt bad after I realized it was like my opponents must think I'm salty talking shit about my deck, but really I'm having a ton of fun losing talking shit about my deck.
All right, trying to stay on track a little bit. A couple more questions about the event itself. What did you guys think of having an 11-round structure as compared to a 2-day event you might see at a GP or an SCG?
That was brutal.
There's a lot of discussion about this on Twitter right now. It's the way it has to be because if you want to have Vintage and you want to have Legacy, you're going to have the top 8 be the next day if you don't want to go till 3 in the morning. And otherwise, you're talking about a 4-day event plus the day before, and then so like it's going to be really hard to solve this issue. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe there's something weird like the last 4 rounds of Legacy and the first 4 rounds of Vintage or something. But it's the way it has to be. I mean, would y'all be down to take another day of PTO, spend another $150 on a hotel room or whatever, just so that it would be a little easier?
So here's the thing. We all played Vintage, or I think Joe did not, but the 3 of us played Vintage. And that was 10 rounds. And if my girlfriend is ever on the podcast, I have no idea why she would ever be, but she will tell you guys, I legitimately wanted to quit Magic. At the end of 8 rounds of Vintage, I did not play it all out. I went 4-4 and said, I can't do this anymore. This is the worst experience I've ever had.
I mean, I didn't play as many rounds as y'all did. And on Sunday, I didn't bring cards except to sell to the venue. And people are like, you playing on the side event? I go, I'm done playing Magic this weekend.
No. But here's the thing. I played Legacy, which was 11 rounds of Swiss, on, Saturday? Yeah, on Saturday. I loved it. I loved every second of it. I was, so energized and, bouncing up and down, and I was, stoked to be there. And, even the games I lost, I had really bad.
I think that also goes to, like I said, that's your deck. Oh, yeah. I was annoyed at the end of playing my 4 or 5 rounds, whatever it was, because it was like this format sucks right now. This deck is fucking stupid.
Well, no, Sean and I, so after we finished our rounds, we went out and grabbed a steak and a beer and just chatted about our experiences so far. And I was in the same boat as him. Vintage was the event I had been looking forward to the most going into the weekend, and Legacy, while I like my deck, I have not enjoyed weeklies for several months, so I wasn't excited about the format going in, but I was shocked because I felt the same way afterwards. I played 11 rounds of Legacy and was energized when I was done, and Vintage just felt like I was hitting my head against a wall for 10 rounds.
I think maybe, I don't know if it's a product of how well you did, because you did pretty well. But I'll say I felt great last year, but I did very well. I played a deck that was mentally not taxing. And maybe that's why I did not feel that last year. I played all 9 rounds of Vintage and all 10 rounds of Legacy. And I did not feel taxed. And I don't know because I did well or, I mean, I played shops in Vintage. So I just went, blam, 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 you can't play the game anymore.
No, I agree. I think that's always a part of it. But I just, at the same time, almost every match of Legacy I played had something really memorable happen in it, and I can't tell you a single thing that happened in Vintage right now off the top of my head.
How much of that do you think is because you're not a primarily Vintage player?
Part of it, yeah. I mean, there are reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I also think both formats are not particularly interesting right now, so I didn't play 10 rounds of Vintage and 11 rounds of Legacy for a reason.
But I think, we got on this topic by asking what we thought about the round structure, and I think partially why he brought that up is because I don't know that there's anything that inherently bad about having a 10 or 11 round event, and frankly, right. I prefer it to doing a 2-day event. I don't like a structure in which it's like I have to do an amazing showing one day just to continue the next day.
I will How say about that, this? There needs to be some sort of break. I feel like that was my biggest gripe. I actually, in 30 minutes after I dropped, I wish I hadn't dropped. It was just like I needed a beer so damn bad. I needed dinner so damn bad. It was like if they just been seventh inning stretch sort of thing. Here's 30
that was
minutes.
a question. I don't remember who I was talking to, But someone asked the question and was like, no, there is no lunch break. Why would there be? Like, can you imagine the clusterfuck that a lunch break would be?
No, but I actually really like that idea. I mean, they already had all these rounds that were going to time and doing deck checks, and we're sitting around for a half hour.
So you know what might make it easier is at GP New Jersey, 2013, 2014, they got a food truck on site. So there was real food accessible for people who, you know, like, I mean, every round goes 20, 30 minutes over time. There was real food accessible. And I think that might have really helped. Is that a thing that might have made things easier to have not, you know, last resort food, but there was real food available?
Definitely help. I think just having like a mental... All right, so for me personally, I was playing a deck I wasn't as comfortable with, and just, it gets mentally draining. So I think having most of my matches went relatively long. I mean, it's a control deck, it's grindy. That's my own fault. Like I played it knowing that, but I don't know. I think there's a lot to be said for just take 30 minutes and not think.
So I'll say this is where if you're going to go that deep, VIP is really worth it. Is because the VIP area you can sit down. It's not quiet, but it is quieter. And there's less going on around you. There's less people going to come up and talk to you. And that can be really helpful.
Although the one time I borrowed your VIP badge to fill up my water bottle, I went in there and it smelled like a fart. So
I think like 6 different people took my VIP badge this weekend. The other thing I will say might make these kind of things a lot easier is, and I mean, Sean and Joe, who are local, can attest, I appreciate punctuality, is if we could start the player meeting at 9 a.m., that would make the whole thing a lot better. What that would probably require is the venue opening at 7 instead of 8. Because, I mean, when I got there, so during Legacy, I got there at like 8:30 because we enjoyed our lunch, or our breakfast. It was 15 minutes to get badged up or whatever you want to call it. So maybe just something to increase how just the tournament starts on time might help.
I think that's very true. Like I think
there was also some between round stuff that could have been handled a little better. Online versus on-site pairings were slow, and that's a thing that can make things run just a little faster. I mean, 2 or 3 minutes here or there across an 11-round tournament turns into half an hour.
Yeah, this is an interesting discussion, though, just in that the reason I asked the question is because the online reaction I've seen in the days following the event has been, as people are wont to do on the internet, there's a number of people like complaining about some of these logistical elements or about having an 11-round event. But I was actually pretty happy with how everything ran. There were, during rounds when I was sitting around waiting for stuff to start, I was getting annoyed, but in retrospect,
I know there was at least one round that was 100 minutes.
Yeah, it's...
So, of the people who played all 11 rounds, when did round 11 end?
How did you... 100 minutes?
50 plus 50.
Yeah, I understand the numbers concepts, but did that actually happen?
Yeah. It's not even uncommon in an event of this size and of this importance.
That's mind-blowing.
Well, I mean, take a high tide deck, which can spend 20 minutes on one turn, and add a rules question.
Right, and then a deck check. I guess it's possible, but I never felt as though any rounds went.
There was one that went that long because I was waiting on someone where it was like, oh, we can't find this guy. Wait till the round starts because everyone will sit down and we'll be able to find this guy. And I was like, holy shit, we've been sitting here forever.
Yeah, when
did round 11 end? Because I can't imagine what the guy who double top 8'd, that guy must have taken Monday off, today off, and probably Wednesday because he was there till 11 midnight and then top 8 twice.
Probably a lot of Adderall involved.
That guy's gonna be fried.
Yeah, what a trooper though. I mean,
yeah,
double top 8s, and vintage ships and legacy ships,
which I believe is the first double top 8 as well.
Wow,
which is so awesome. But this feeds all into the sort of ultimate question of the champs themselves. Did you guys enjoy yourselves?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Joe, do you want to start us off here?
I mean, I actually really like going to big events like this. I haven't gone to very many, but it's just.
This is your second after Louisville, right?
Yeah, it's the second after Louisville. I always find it awesome to play against a bunch of different people and see decks that don't play against that much, even if they're fairly common, like Mono Red Sneak, which actually there are people to shop and play, but still, like, I hardly ever play against that. I don't know, it's fun to actually be around a lot of people that are excited about the same thing, play against a lot of
decks. Excited about the same thing is super true. It's everyone in the room loves the thing that you love.
Yeah.
Which is also great because, like, I went to lunch with a guy I'd never met before because we were just, like, shooting the shit about Vintage, and I was like, well, I'm going to go grab beers. He's like, I'll go with you.
Yeah, it's a really great atmosphere. I mean, there are stereotypes about Magic players, and most of them, to be frank, just aren't very good stereotypes. That being said, like, I didn't really enjoy Vintage Champs very much, but all of my opponents that day were just, like, an absolute, like, treats to, like, talk to. They were, like, wonderful people, really excited to be there. I had no idea what I was doing on Dredge, and no one was like, oh, of course, like, the salty, like, of course, like, this first timer on Dredge, you know, beats me or whatever. Like, I won 4 of my matches, lost 4 of them. I even had a couple of, like, people, I don't know if this happened to you guys, but, like, people got really excited to see, like, the Lone Star Lhurgoyfs t-shirts.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had a couple people call me out.
Something for Sam, actually. So I had a couple people go up like, "Hey, I love your Twitter account." It's like, no, that's Sam.
But, like, to give you an idea, like, I had a guy who was on Ad Nauseam Tendrils, and he turned one to me, and I fucking high-fived him. And that shit does not happen in Legacy because there's just a little bit more grinding in Legacy, and it does not happen at all in a GP, which is why I don't do well in GPs.
But yeah,
I mean, one of the reasons.
That's why you don't do well in GPs. Got it.
I mean, I'm the kind of guy that my opponent flipped 30 cards to Ad Nauseam. I said, before you continue, can I take a picture of the board?
Definitely a huge shout out to all opponents, though. I didn't have a single bad opponent all weekend. Like, they were all cool dudes. And yeah, anyone who came up and complimented us or said they liked the cast, like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, we're still a new, not established cast, so getting, like, positive feedback is great. So
the one thing I noticed this year over last year was so we all had the Goyf shirts on. There were a lot more people starting to do some sort of team representation. I can't remember his name, but I played against a guy in multiple formats who was wearing one of the Taxmen shirts, and we ended up hanging out a couple different times. And it's very cool to see people are starting to, like, kind of build their, I don't know, brand is probably not the right word, but communities, yeah. And it's like, if nothing else, people, like, I mean, I had people come up to me in, like, Lone Star Lhurgoyfs, like, hey, how is Houston? Are y'all doing okay?
Yeah,
like, that's really cool.
Yeah, I was really surprised at that. Like, I mean, right, like, personally, and I think that's happened to, like, you guys as well, but, like, it was, like, rough, but, like, we didn't have it nearly as bad as, like, a lot of people did. And so, like, to have people still thinking about that was, like, really touching.
Yeah, I would say, so my go-to small talk while you're shuffling is, where are you from? And either what are you playing tomorrow in Legacy or what did you play yesterday in Vintage? And I would say around 90% of people said, Houston, how are you doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a lot of that as well. And I was,
which was funny because really the story is the worst affected Lhurgoyf was in Austin and a tree fell on his house. Everyone else in the Goyfs was totally fine.
Yeah, so I thought it was a great event, and, you know, there were, I guess, some between-round issues about timing, although I'm not, like, really persuaded those can be avoided.
Yeah, I think that's endemic to the way that Magic works. I mean, we could all call judges on stalling better. I don't know what else.
Yeah, you know, but other than that, I mean, Card Titan did a great job, and I guess this cast hasn't been about it, but also I thought Jaco did a great job organizing the old school event. Like, I thought everyone in charge of stuff did a good time, and it fed into having a good time.
And I don't know, did any of y'all talk to Nick Koss, the guy who runs Card Titan?
No.
You could tell Nick really believes in Eternal, and he really cares about it, and he wants everyone to have a good time. So I talked to him 3 different times over the weekend. I get all my $75 playmats signed by everyone I meet. If you're watching this on video, you can see them right here. And I got Nick to sign both of them. And the second one I brought up to him the next day, I was like, "Hey, Nick, will you sign my playmat?" And he gave me a big grin. He knew exactly who I was. He was like, "Yeah, for sure." And then I ran into him as I was going out to my flight. He was in the hotel, and he's like, "Hey, did you have a good weekend? How'd you do?" And I'm like, it's great to have the people who are running the event really care. Mm-hmm. It's not we're running a big event, we're gonna charge $75 entry, we're gonna make $40 a person on that. Fuck yeah.
That's not professional event services.
Well, good news. They are down to like 3 big events a year.
Sweet. Yeah, well, I'm glad everyone enjoyed themselves. I guess moving forward, what do you think there's anything to take away from this event? As a starter, do you think the legacy meta is healthy?
I mean, well, I want to be more specific. Let's start. BNR change?
When is it?
It's in like 2.5 months.
Yeah. Early next year.
I'm going with no change.
Are we having this conversation again?
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying, like, do you think there will be one? If so, what is it? And that is all.
I mean, I don't think there will be any changes, but it's also like, I do think there are problems with the format. And yeah, it's almost like banned and restricted announcements are one tool that you can implement to solve a problem. Like if you are a carpenter, it's like this is a hammer.
Right.
But like you have a saw or like a cutting board or like.
Well, I mean, the alternative is players innovating, which isn't going to happen, and printing new cards, which I mean, with WotC's history, is just going to fuck things up further.
I don't know. I had because we had a talk here. I don't remember exactly who was on that cast talking about Deathrite Shaman a couple months ago, whether it needs to be banned or not, and I think we all kind of felt like. It's obviously very strong, and it doesn't need to be banned, but if the meta looks this way in about a year, maybe we should start giving it some thought.
I think it was basically, it's real close.
Right. And like, here's the thing, though. I hate that card more than ever now, but I think it's even further away from a ban than it was when we recorded that cast. And the reason for that is because... Yeah, go ahead.
Top 8 was, what, 20 Deathrite Shaman and 28 Brainstorm?
It's the thing, though. It's like it's not even like meta representation. I was talking to I forgot his name. Sean O'Brien about this, but he made a really good point. He's just like that's the thing. It's like it's not just Deathrite Shaman. It's just like the power creep in creatures.
Well, and it's also the whole like you can call Grixis Delver and check pile different decks, but their main decks, other than mana producers, are like 4 cards different, and you kind of have this homogenization. Right. Where a lot of things come together and they're very similar, even though they are a little bit different, where we're kind of coming to everything's very similar. Right. Because it's just like, the best shit.
Yeah, you have like these blue-black shells, which you can play Brainstorm, Force of Will, and Deathrite Shaman. And they're fantastic, and they're consistent, and they're powerful. And it's like you ban Deathrite, but then it's like, then what happens, Like, I think a couple of things will happen. It's like, either the Grizzlebrand decks will start taking over, where it's like, these Sneak and Show or Show and Tell decks will be really strong, or like the Reanimator decks, without Deathrite Shaman being in the format, maybe that's all they needed to be like top tier again. That's like one possibility. Another one is just like, what about True Name Nemesis? I think that like the problem is you've printed a creature for like almost every meta cost that is just like the best at what it's going to do from now until the end of time. Like, you cannot print a better like ground creature, combat creature. Than True Name Nemesis.
Well, I mean, that was the joke that Kobe made was, look at the best workshop deck. It's all brown non-creatures and silver creatures.
Yeah. And I understand that's kind of like the direction they wanted to take things in because they think it'll be better for newer players. Whatever their testing shows that they like creatures more than spells, but it's just, like, I think there are problems with the meta, and I don't think banning Deathrite Shaman will solve anything.
Yeah.
Joe, what do you think?
I completely agree. I don't think banning Deathrite solves the problem. I think.
So you're saying there is a problem, though? Then
I will say there's a problem. Let's be honest. You pretty much have to play kind of blue stew, if you will. You're going to have brainstorms. You're going to have forces, and that makes Bug really strong because you can splash for black and green. You get a lot of nice sideboard options. It homogenizes the format a bit. I don't think that's necessarily Deathrite Shaman's. Deathrite Shaman's not the source of the problem. Yeah, how's that?
So you've brought up the exact word I wanted to use, which is blue stew, or phrase I want to use, which is there's a growing worry in Vintage that you cannot restrict enough blue stuff because it will just be a pile of good blue stuff. And I feel like that's the thing that we're rapidly approaching in Legacy is that there's a probably blue-black shell that, like, if you really want to fix this blue-black shell, like, you got Brainstorm and Deathrite Shaman or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably just Brainstorm.
I mean,
I mean, the thing is, you take away brainstorm, it completely changes the entire format. I mean, that's the linchpin of a lot of things in Legacy.
And when we had our discussion on Deathrite Shaman, we opened it with we're going to discuss a ban in Legacy, we have to start with the assumption that there's no brainstorm ban.
Yeah.
Because that's the first thing to cut.
I'll be frank, I'm kind of ready for a brainstorm ban at this point.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with it. It seems, I mean, now it's been a few years, but I'll give the Sean O'Brien stat. It 32 for 32 a GP and was not banned. That to me says it's not getting banned.
So what's interesting to me, though, is that I agree with, I guess, all three of you that maybe there's a problem in the meta, especially when I look at the top 8. But both my play experience on the day and looking over the top 32 and top 64 makes me not feel like Legacy's as bad as I've felt it has been over the
I completely agree with you. Granted, I did not play nearly as much Magic as you guys did, but I did not perceive the problems in those few rounds that I do perceive with the wider metagame. And again, we only had 740 people for Legacy, and Seattle will cap probably at 1,800 or 2,100. It'll cap at whatever the cap is.
Well, the other thing too is
it'll cap at whatever the cap is, of course. But
the broader thing is mostly Moto, and I mean, I don't feel like that's that representative. There just aren't that many big paper tournaments. I think that's part of the problem. Is that there is a bigger metagame.
We're down to 4 Legacy tournaments a year. You have a European GP, an American GP, Vegas, and 5 events. And 2 Eternal Weekends. And the Eternal Weekends are significantly smaller than any of the GPs, like half as large.
For what it's worth, we do get 4 Legacy GPs next year. So
fuck yeah. Let's Seattle 415. I'll see y'all there.
Oh, for sure. Really looking
by the way, I did want to mention, Sean, this was your second big event, right?
Maybe like third. Definitely count them on one hand, though.
You're pretty new to it. And Stu, how many big events have you been to?
I don't know.
I'm just curious because I'm trying to do a comparison. We were talking about this when we were talking about how we're all oldsters. I think this is like my 12th big event, and I think I'm winding down on them.
Yeah, I'm not feeling any burnout. I've only been back into playing Magic as of 2014, so like 3 years. So maybe in a few years I'll feel the same way. But right now I'm like down for it. I wish I could go to more than I can.
Yeah,
that's great.
Perfect. I'm gonna go to GP, not GP, whatever the SCG this weekend for Legacy is. Like, I actually looked at plane tickets, and of course they're expensive a week out. It's definitely not going to happen. But
no, there's not. I'd like to.
Yeah, right. But okay, I will say this on a tangent. I think a lot of people just don't take very good care of themselves, like physically and like mentally, just going into these tournaments. And I don't know, like. I can't imagine, like, I'm someone who can't function without, like, 8 hours of sleep. So, like, I'm a special fucking snowflake in that regard.
I mean, I feel like kind of what you're talking about is, so Patrick and I's flight was delayed 4 hours and 40 minutes. We arrived at the
This is not what I was talking about, but this is
but I mean, like, we arrived at the Airbnb at 4:10 a.m. On Thursday. If we had arrived at 4:10 a.m. on Friday, the day of the tournament, we would have just been fucking destroyed. Yeah, like at that point, I would have just been like, let's just find a Coke dealer. That's way better than going to sleep. Not really. I would never endorse such a thing, obviously.
I mean, that's your life, man. I guess we're a family-friendly podcast. Despite dropping a couple of F-bombs. Yeah, no. And, like, I definitely don't hold that against you. And I definitely, like, that's not what I was thinking about at all. It's just something that really, like, kind of has been dancing around the back of my mind, but really crossed it when we were talking about, like, how long is too long? And like these 10-round, 11-round like Swiss tournaments, like I went to bed like super fucking early the night before. I went to bed at a couple people went out drinking, whatever, and it's like, yeah, that's awesome. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna go to sleep at like 9:30, wake up at like 6, get my like 8 hours in or whatever, and then like I felt great that entire day. Whereas like for Vintage, I didn't sleep very well the night before, and I felt it.
I could not tell you the last time I went to bed at 9:30.
Oh God, I'm an old fogey. But
it's interesting because in my day-to-day life, I actually live a lot more of that lifestyle. Like I'm usually going to bed in the 10s probably, and I don't have to wake up until like 7 or 7:30. So like I get a good night's sleep every night. So like these long events are really where
Well, this is kind of the thing I was talking about with the person who double top 8'd. Is like at max that guy got like 6 hours of sleep, right? Because he had to like finish the tournament, leave, probably grab a bite of something shitty to eat because there's nothing else open, wake up early, grab something fast to eat, and then start playing Magic again. Like,
did he have any vibes?
Fucking stimulants involved? Like, there's no way people aren't.
Well, I know that the concession stand was sold out of green and blue monsters almost all weekend.
And Sean was eating those jelly beans.
Oh, those jelly beans. Patrick, if you're listening to this, man, those jelly beans.
Did you try the caffeine jelly beans?
They had no caffeine in them. That's the thing. He just shoved them into my hoodie, and he's like, I don't want these. They have no caffeine in them. And so like,
so it's probably like sugar, B12.
Yeah, they were just called like quick, like natural, quick energy beans or something, and they tasted like shit. But
B12 and L-theanine, and I bet that's what it was.
I like maybe made like a real bean. That would probably actually be better for you.
Pinto jelly beans.
Yeah.
So hey, let's this is a great subject for another time. Let's talk about cool plays because we're at about an hour 15. Cool stuff we did, cool stuff we saw, because we kind of skipped that in our individual tournament reports. Stu, you want to go first?
Yeah, let's each do one. I don't really like to highlight my plays because a lot of stuff also comes down to what your opponent does, etc. My best thing though was playing against Reg in like round 7 or so. I just had I've played a lot of Dredge locally because Patrick Vincent in Austin plays it a lot, so I've got the experience. So when my opponent led, and I wrote about this in the tournament report, when he led on a careful study, I put him on Dredge immediately.
Which is, by the way, probably wrong in the wider metagame. That's probably blue-black reanimator, right?
No, it was mana confluence into
okay, yeah, that's
sorry, I should have clarified. Yeah. So I fetched a forest into a dryad arbor, which I feel like always tells people you're on elves. Then he started dredging, and on my next turn I played a Deathrite, so he continued to think I was on elves. But then I played a wasteland, and that threw him off a ton. Then he dredged into 2 bridges, and when he was going to recur a Narc Amoeba, I wasted my arbor to exile his bridges.
Ooh, that's nice.
I thought so.
This was a piece of tech that Patrick and I discussed prior to the weekend, was that if you're on shops and you're playing Walking Ballista, you should cast it for 0 to beat Dredge.
Yeah, it's the same with Metamorph.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I did that, and then I just I ended up taking over with Deathrite. Oh, I had a Scrib Ranger to block. It killed a Narc Amoeba and then could just block Prized Amalgam the whole time.
This is wonderful.
Yeah, I felt great. So I won.
Eternal Magic is great.
Yeah, and this was game 1, so I felt great taking that down. So that was my best game, I think, was against Dredge.
I don't think any of us are going to top that. I'm still stuck in that wasteland play.
So I've got 2.5 stories. One of which I told in the precast, which was a guy I played on a Legacy grinder was on Death and Taxes, and turn 2's Absolute Law, and I'm playing check pile, and I'm like, Absolute Law, fuck yeah, this guy mis-sideboarded because I am playing the following red cards main deck: Lightning Bolt, 1 of, which is wrong, 2 Kolaghan's Command, that is all, and I have no relevant sideboard cards for him in red. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to destroy this guy playing Absolute Law. And I proceeded to draw Kolaghan's Command, Lightning Bolt, Kolaghan's Command. And then, to really twist the knife afterwards, because he was a super nice guy, we're going back and forth, he asked me what I thought about his sideboard choices. I said, hey, I think Absolute Law is wrong. It did win you the game, but I think that it's wrong in this matchup. And then I played him in the main event, and he told me he didn't sideboard Absolute Law. And he told me he would have, except I told him not to.
Dude, your baby bird has left the nest. He's taking wings and soaring into a favorable check pile matchup.
He was a super nice guy. I will say, when I played him in the grinder, I feel like I would have beat him if he would have been a little faster. But he seemed like he had a really good time prior to the grinder, so I didn't want to call him on it. because I also had a pretty good time prior to the grinder.
D&T can be a tough deck too. The deck's got a lot of play to it. I mean, I know the onus is on you when you're in these events to play competently and quickly, but D&T is not always the easiest.
Yeah, and he was a little slow, but I didn't mind. Whatever. My other one was round 1. I played against Dragon Stompy, which I'm relatively familiar with. Patrick plays it locally. I understand Chalice 1, Blood Moon. I don't care about anything else they cast. Chalice 1 and Blood Moon. It's all that matters. So game 1, he went 20, 18, 13, 8, 3 smiley face, which means that I won. Game 2.
It's the worst tournament report ever. What was that? He just gave numbers to us.
So I put him to 18 with a Kolaghan's command. Then I swung for 5, swung for 5, swung for 5, smiley face, which means I put a Gurmag Angler into play. Game 2, I'm making fun of how stupid my deck is. And I'm talking about how great his deck is against me. And I'm talking about how Blood Moon just shits on me. And I'm continuing to fetch non-basics. And I just look at him, I'm like, yeah, man, I have no fear. And he's like, Blood Moon, I'm like, yeah, I lose. And then, so game 3, this was the one that's interesting. This is the one that is the story. So we're playing and we're going back and forth, real tight game. And he casts Burning Wish, which I have not seen in a red Stompy deck, but I greatly appreciate.
That's the new tech.
So he Burning Wishes for Rolling Earthquake. From the vault, Rolling Earthquake. And he,
Thanks for the clarification.
So he Rolling Earthquakes for 2 and wipes like 2 Strix and a Deathrite Shaman. Deals 2 to both of us. Couple turns later, he Burning Wishes again. I'm like, oh, what do you got this time? Dual deck. Banefire.
Oh, yeah.
And I made a misplay. He was about to cast Banefire, and I mentioned that it's not uncounterable unless it's for 5 or more. And he like untaps his lands like past turn. I'm like, fuck, I just me joking around with my opponent is a misplay. The best one. Several turns later, he casts a 3rd Burning Wish. I will give you 1,000 guesses, and you will not guess the card he got.
Lava X.
That's a good guess.
Okay, I'm all out. I don't know any red sorceries.
He gets, I don't remember which edition it was, but it was a new border Roast. Roast, for those of you not familiar,
is in cons.
Roast? No, it's been reprinted several times.
Really?
Yeah, because I looked it up earlier today.
Oh, all right.
Is an X and red sorcery that does X damage to target creature, and he roasted for 5 to kill my Gurmag Angler. I was like,
that's not roast.
It's roast.
Yeah. Hold on, we're gonna
2 mana, 5 damage to a creature without flying, right?
No. It's red and X, right?
No, that's not roast.
But you're right. No, I looked up the wrong speller. You're right. It is it is dragons, and it is 5. It's 1 in red for 5 damage.
Yeah.
Ignore everything I said the last 2 minutes.
Roast is sick. I play that card modern. So good.
So he foil roasts my Gurmag Angler, and I'm like, is that? And like at this point, we clearly have established a rapport because I have established that I am fucking stupid. And I'm like, is that really the best play right now? And he's like, you blow up my Ensnaring Bridge, I'll lose the game. I'm like, huh, you're right. I should probably blow up your Ensnaring Bridge. And then like we're going back and forth, and I'm like looking at his lands, I'm like, oh man, he's gonna Banefire me pretty soon. We're going, and he's like, Banefire for 6. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. Fuck yeah, Banefire for 6. And as we're deboarding, he tells me I am the most fun opponent he has ever had, which I guess is primarily based on me not giving a fuck about the match we just played.
It helps. It helps. You guys got any plays you want to go over? Or?
I guess I'll go. I had a couple of notable matches. Round 1 might have been my favorite, but I was against 4-color alone on Impact. And the game crawls to a standstill where eventually he has a Thalia in play, and I resolve a Sylvan Safekeeper with a Pendelhaven. And he's at 4 life because he's been taking cards from Sylvan Library all game. And I just clock him and clock him and clock him. And eventually he has a chunk block with 2/3. with a 2-1 Thalia, and then
Oh, no.
we still get there.
Yeah, the real damage infect is just such a nightmare loss.
No, dude, it's the Sylvan Safekeeper Sylvan Library combo.
I mean, you still have to beat Tom Ross's record of invigorating your opponent to 28 and then beating them with real damage.
Way to do it.
Doing
Sounds
28
miserable.
real damage.
You said this was aggro loam?
Yeah, aggro, or yeah, I guess aggro loam, 4-color loam, whatever you want to call it. The deck with Mox Diamonds and Confidants and Thalia.
Yeah, that's aggro loam.
Yeah.
That deck can do a lot of damage to itself.
Yeah, and so I played against that round 1. This is pretty good. Bug control, nothing happened. Stuff, nothing happened. I lost my camera match. I don't know if that counts as noteworthy.
It was
You were on camera. Fuck yeah, Lone Star Lhurgoyfs. We need to get some sleeves made. Apparently, just for you though.
Camera. Oh, I mean, I don't know. Maybe for vintage, you can.
I mean, they're like $40 for 20 of them, so we're not gonna make it for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first time on camera, and it was absolutely sweet. I played against a guy who, yes, Stu said it was the mirror, and I lost the top deck invigorate, and I apologize to everyone I've ever top deck invigorated in the past now, but I'm not going to stop doing it. So, I think going forward, yeah, I mean, my most noteworthy match, I would say, was like round 9, and I did play against Jarvis Yu.
Oh yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, I don't know, like, there's something very like liberating almost about like playing against somebody you know is just like a better player than you. You just have to take these chances, and you're like, oh man, like my opportunity is closing, like my window's closing really quickly, you know. And if you guys have any idea of how that matchup goes, it's usually like I kill him in the first couple of turns, or I lose that one.
Or you punishing fires all your dudes.
Right. Some combination of punishing fire or like a wasteland lock, or really just like any sort of options they want.
Yeah,
Molten Vortex
So
is just impossible to beat.
did you have anything that helped you to be less stressed about playing against someone who's kind of a big name?
So I come from like a background of like I did a lot of PC gaming like throughout high school and college. And I got pretty good at League of Legends to the point where like my friends and I were all pretty good, and it would be like super I guess like I don't know, exhilarating. We were all like reasonably like high MMRs or whatever, and we'd occasionally get matched against like pro players. And this is just how we kill time. Like we would be like, oh my god, so and so is playing against a pro player. They would just like stream their computer, and we would all just sit in the living room and watch them play against a pro player. Mm-hmm. And like that was really hyped up for me, and I really enjoyed moments like that. One, because it's like you kind of get to like pitch yourself, and like I don't know, I love my weeklies, but like I'll be honest, like I'm never gonna meet anybody as good as Jarvis Yu at my weeklies, you know, unless Jarvis Yu comes to Houston.
What the fuck, Sean? I guarantee you, I am better at Portent Miracles than he is.
Even if that is the case, like it is a very I don't know, I almost see it as like I get where the nerves come from, but like I frame it as an opportunity more so than like a challenge, you know, to overcome. And like in that regard, it's like, yeah, I'm so lucky. I got paired up against this guy who's really good with his deck, knows exactly what he's doing. I think I even bugged the guy a little bit too much afterwards because I asked him too many questions, but like I am so ecstatic, like win or lose, to be playing against anybody like that, you know?
Nice.
Is that the first time you've played a big player?
I played against an SCG Grinder, SCG Worcester, but that was like, it's like I know you're a good player, but it's also like he's very clearly just there for like the circuit points. And it's like I was talking to him, he was on check pile, and it's like, so why'd you choose that deck? And he's like, my friend handed it to me. And I'm like, okay, Ted Felicity, that's great to hear. And you know, like
I feel better about it.
Yeah, he's a nice guy, but it's like, you know, he doesn't have like too much insight to provide on the deck. Yeah, so I'd say like Jarvis was like the first like legacy pro that I played against, and it was like, I don't know, I thought that was a really great opportunity, and like I got to ask him about the matchup. We used to have a couple good lands players around, but like ever since they've included like Tireless Tracker, Drop of Honey, Ancient Tomb,
it certainly doesn't help that the two people who play lands the most often at Asgard are me and Elijah, and generally we drop after round 2 regardless of our record.
Yeah, like I don't know. Elijah's a good lands player. I know he is, but like he also just doesn't play that much Magic anymore. And I know he doesn't own like maybe he owns like 1 Drop of Honey, but not 2. And he's supposed to play like Rug lands. I can't like get that kind of matchup insight by talking to him.
Yeah. I was just curious because, like I said earlier, it seems like I'm at big tournaments a little more experienced than y'all, so I've done this a little more. I was wondering if there's if you came in with a different opinion. Did Joe or Stu, did y'all play any big players, and how did that affect you?
I played Anurag in this was in Vintage. Anurag Das. He just totally stomped me. Like, it was not even close. I didn't do anything.
I heard that guy's pretty good at Magic. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Joe played. Yeah.
Yeah, I played Jarvis U. I fell apart so bad. I think, let's see, what was it? The first time I had an energy field out, forgot I had an energy field out, and again, basically scooped to a 2020 second game. I do basically the same thing. Knowing
that's how I won round 1, game 2 of Vintage. Spoiler for next cast.
Joe, I have a question for you that'll help you judge your performance this weekend. Did you ever helm anyone without having rest in peace out?
I did, actually. Yeah. I got a Death Ride Shaman out of the deal.
Value.
That's among the worst things that you could get with Obedience, especially in a deck with no green or black lands.
Exactly. See here, you get one more Death Rat Shaman, and then you can start draining them for 2.
You got a 1/2. What's a 1/2? Like it's not even a squire.
I got all my rest in pieces surgical extracted by one of my Grixis opponents, and so I had the Helm already out. I think it was Grixis. I don't remember what it was. I think it was one of the Grixis matchups. And I had the Helm already out because I was just like, well, you're tapped out. I'm going to cast this now, and then next turn I cast the rest in peace, and he countered it. I think I had tutored for it or something. I forget exactly what happened. But for whatever reason, I cast the Helm first. He countered the Helm, and I surgically extracted them. And so I'm like, well, this isn't any good anymore. I'll just Helm you for 6, and.
Fingers crossed with a Gurmag Angler.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going for. Apparently, it sounded those out.
So I've got one more play I want to mention, and this was actually not my play; it was my opponent's. But I was very impressed at this play. So I played a guy named Guido, which is probably not the correct pronunciation, but it is the correct spelling. And he was on Ad Nauseam Tendrils in Legacy.
Hold on, what is the spelling of that?
I mean, it was Guido.
That's how it's spelled.
Yeah, okay. All right. No, you're right. You're right.
So he's on Ant, and I pretty much crushed him game 1. Game 2, we have a really back and forth match, and we get to the point. I have Jace on 13, and he knows I have a surgical, and I have like 4 or 5 other cards, including a force and a blue card, and I know he has 2 LEDs, and he has 3 other cards in hand. Or well, when he draws, he has 3 other cards in hand. So he has like 6 lands. He goes Cabal Ritual. I'm like, yeah, I guess. He goes Cabal Ritual. I'm like, yeah, I guess. And he goes LED. I'm like, yeah, I guess. He goes LED. And I was like, do you have the natural tendrils? And he just flops the tendrils down. And I think about it and I go, so you do 12? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so I'm at 2. He's like, yeah. I'm like, Pop Jace kill you? But the reason this is really good is he knows I'm on a blue deck. He knows I have surgical extraction. The entire list of his outs is get me to play a spell before Tendrils of Agony. And I think that is a super, super heads-up play, and I thought it was really, really cool that he went for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, like, I don't know, sort of a mantra. Everyone always says, oh, yeah, play to your outs. Don't never give up play to your outs. But, like, sometimes you're out.
I mean, your outs being in your opponent's deck is much different than the normal, okay, I have 3 of 40 left in the deck.
Right.
You're just tricking your opponent into casting a spell is a whole next level.
Right. It's incredibly difficult to, like, I mean, I guess in his case, like, he kind of had to go for it because he's dead the next turn. But,
right.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, getting people to, I guess, like, yeah, like, cast certain things or, like, I don't know, because everyone is always thinking about, like, if I do this, will I lose, right? As soon as your opponent starts casting.
And he had enough mana that if I surgical extraction to either Cabal Ritual or LED, he won the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought that was an awesome play. It was the coolest play I saw happen. Other than the turn 3 kill that Joe had in his control deck.
That happened actually with every single Grixis matchup. I got a Helm Rest in Peace lock, and they're like, yeah, no main deck answers, scoop. All right, I actually have to run, guys. It's been a blast. I really appreciate you having me on here, but I'm going to have to drop out a little early.
Yeah, no, I think we're wrapping up anyway. So, yeah, thanks for coming on, Joe. A nice run this weekend.
Yeah, thanks a bunch.
Yeah, congratulations.
We do have a tentatively planned deck tech for Joe's deck, because it did quite well for a
janky, thing that was put together.
Yeah, you started off like 5-1, right?
Joe, those are your words, not mine.
Yeah, I won 5 in a row, I think. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, so sick.
All right.
Yeah. Well, Joe,
Thanks for being with us, Joe. We'll only be a few more minutes, I'm sure.
We'll wrap it up.
Right.
All right.
Do you guys have any?
Much.
Yeah, take it easy, man. Do you guys have any closing thoughts? I guess now seems like a good time to wrap up. We've been here for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I just I had a really good time. I think it's easy to maybe pick apart some things, but I thought the whole event was great. I have a couple shout outs to some people who I met along the way. I think we already mentioned just our opponents in general were all awesome. So, thanks to all my opponents for just making it a good time.
Yeah.
I met Jerry Mee from Leaving Legacy, if anyone knows him. He was cool. It's great to meet him. Also, Steve and Kevin from So Many Insane Plays were around all weekend. It was cool chatting with them.
I really enjoy talking to those guys.
They're both awesome. And Kevin, when I met him, I was going up to order a coffee, and then he was in line behind me. I was like, "Oh, you're Kevin. I listened to your podcast," and I paid for my coffee, and then just walked away. And he was like, "Hey, you forgot your coffee," and I was like, "Oh."
Wait, hold on. On that note, my favorite quote of the weekend is, "So, did we tell you about the prostitute last night?" Oh, hi, Stephen in India.
Yeah, that was great too. Yeah, Sean and I were walking over to meet you guys at the bar, and I started to tell him the night before at this bar there had been, I won't go too far into it, but there was a prostitute hanging out.
A potential woman of the night.
Yeah, who anyway, she was coming over and whatever, but yeah, so I started to tell Sean that, and then Steve Menendian walks by, and I just go, "Oh, hey, Steve Menendian," and he just goes, "Did I hear what I think?" But yeah, they're both awesome. That was great. All the Tusk guys were cool. Aaron Campbell.
Aaron was great. Aaron had the tweet of the weekend, by the way.
What was that?
They announced that the tournament was going to be 11 rounds, and she quoted it and said, "I will be done transitioning before this tournament is over."
Good. Let's see. My buddy Elton, he's a cool dude who I met up with. Shaman Ben's good guy. Zemet. Yeah, that
Missouri MTG Jeremy.
Yeah, he was awesome. Patrick and I were at the airport waiting for our flight, and he recognized us. He's like, "Hey, I'll buy you guys a beer if you'll play me some matches of Fair Magic, with a deck that won't turn on me." So we played some Maverick versus Nick Fit, and yeah, he's a cool dude.
I like Zeman.
Dan from San Antonio, it's good to see him. And yeah, like I also said, just any of the guys who ran the tournaments, be that Card Titan or Jaco or whatever, they all just did an awesome job with it. So a lot of kudos. It was just great meeting everyone and getting all the shared enthusiasm.
Yeah, no, for real. Shout out to all the tournament organizers. Absolutely. I didn't play in old school, but huge shout out to Card Titan for hosting this every year. And I don't know, people here we are kind of picking apart the tournament, as Stu put it, sort of saying this could have been better, that could have been better. But at the end of it all, it was just an incredible experience. And stuff like that is only possible when these larger organizers put in the time and effort to create something like this.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, you can tell Nick cares about this. This is not a purely business event for him, which I think is great.
Right. I will say I wish the convention center had a water fountain that was closer than 10 minutes away. But other than that,
my negatives on, I had VIP, so water was not a problem. But VIP just means I had $100 in my bank account. It doesn't mean anything else. I will say I did not enjoy Pittsburgh as a venue. The only thing I thought it had going for it was that the bar district was right next door.
I did like that, though. It was
that was fucking convenient.
Yeah, no, I was into that.
Shout out, since we're primarily Legacy and I'll be on the Old School Vintage cast. The guy I played on Death and Taxes twice, you were totally fun to play. Speed it up a little, but you were really fun to play against. The guy I played on Dragon Stompy, you were super fun to play with. And I think David, I played him in more than one event, and he was on different decks each time. One of the taxmen, he was really fun. He called a judge on me and was like, hey, I wouldn't call a judge normally, but it's comp. I was like, no, I totally fucked it up. And the judge comes by, and David tells him, or whoever it was, tells him the story. And the judge is like, I don't understand. I go, I brainstormed a ponder. And the judge is like, oh, that's bad. So, yeah. All the Legacy folks were great. Shout out to all the Goyfs as well. It was great to see people come out. Joe's second event, Joanne's first. That was very exciting to me that we got slowly getting some more people into it, which is really cool.
Yeah, these bigger events, I mean, like, they're kind of a milestone, and like, I know for a fact, like, if like some people that jump into these big tournaments, if they don't have a good time, like, that's it for them. There's no incentive for them to buy another.
Well, that's like I talked to Joanne, and she's not 100% on going again, but she's not 100% against, which is great. Mm-hmm. And her thing is mostly, I want to play a better deck next time. Cool, we can let me help you with that.
Better than blue-black fairies. That, like, what is that?
Don't you dare talk poorly about blue-black fairies.
That started out as her wanting to play that, and ended with her being like, I guess I'm playing this. So we've talked a couple times. I am working on convincing her to play Jund with Chains of Mephistopheles in it, because that is an important card to have in that deck.
No, I love some Jund. I'll support that.
But yeah, I expect we'll have a lot of Goyfs at GB Seattle, both for Legacy, and then a lot of us have Will, who is the former owner, the founder of Asgard Games, lives in Seattle, so I know a lot of us will want to see him. Also, Seattle's just gorgeous in April. It's also the weekend before 420 for those of you who care. I'm probably going for a week. Maybe try and get like an interview in so I can claim to myself that it's a business expense that I was there for a week. That's to the IRS, just to myself.
Don't forget to get a VIP while you're there. Just make sure you have $100 in your bank account.
This is actually a thing I wanted to talk about in the post-game of tournament logistics. I think VIP is worth it. I think staying next to the venue is worth it. Y'all stayed somewhere cheaper. It was great. It was not as good as walking 400 feet to the convention center. I
was very happy with our Airbnb, but
that was good.
Being able to like stay directly across from the venue, whatever, also has its huge perks.
I mean, like one of the big perks being I went back to the hotel room between rounds and like dumped shit. There were a lot of like I ran into people just like in the hotel. I was like, oh, let's go grab a beer or something. So, I mean, that's me. That's where I'm at. It's worth the money to me. This is where I spend, my big spending money of the year is going to Magic tournaments. So.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like, we all play Legacy, like, we can't exactly be like, what, you spent your money on that? That's ridiculous. Like,
yeah, for sure.
We have very little room to talk, but...
I mean, like, the Legacy GP of the year, Eternal Weekend, and Gen Con, those are my big money sinks for my, my free money, or not free money, my fun money.
I get it. Sometimes you have too much money. You're just like, I need to get rid of it. So.
It's more like, I don't have a nice car because I choose to go to Gen Con, that kind of thing. I mean, I say I don't have a nice car. I'm donating my car like next week and riding my bike to work for a couple months.
So yeah,
save the environment, man.
This is devolving, so let's cut it off here. I think the plan is this weekend. A couple other guys are going to record the second half of this, and we'll get that up soon. But yeah, I'm glad that we got to do this recap, and I'm glad we all got to go out there for it. I thought it was
very quickly though. I wish I'd taken better notes because, like, and I've said it before, like, all of my opponents, if any of you listen to the podcast, I know one guy I played in Vintage does, and I forgot everybody's name, and I feel so guilty for it. But like, you were like all an absolute treat to play against, and it was just all incredible people.
That's the best thing about Eternal Weekend is it's all people. It's not a lot of people who want to win. It's a lot of people who want to go out and play Legacy.
And
that's what's great about this event.
I just wish I could like just call out every single one of those people and just let them know it's like, hey, we have really great games, and I really appreciate like the fact that you are not only like an upstanding human being, but also like happen to be someone who plays Eternal formats in Constructed. And then, of course, like shout out to everybody. Card Titan already talked before. Tournament organizers, all the Goyfs who went. I think that's like what? Sam, Stu.
I think we had 7 total.
Patrick, me, Joanne,
and Winston,
and Tim.
And Tim.
Oh my God, how did I forget about Tim? We haven't talked about Tim at all. Oh well, I don't know.
Because Tim played a fucking boring deck. Oh, one other shout out to the judge staff.
Oh yeah, they're unsung heroes.
As we will have on our vintage cast, I do have a complaint about the judge staff. But the judge staff, they do great work. The Abe was the head judge of Vintage and the appeals judge for Legacy. I can't remember the name of the guy who was the head judge for Legacy, but he was great. Mm-hmm. And then all of the people who are not judges but work on the side are great. Like, I mean, I have emailed tournament organizers and said, I don't remember what her last name is, but it said, you need to put Liz at the front of the line at 8 in the morning because she makes everyone's morning better.
Yeah,
she was the only person I fanboyed over when I was like, will you please sign my playmat? I mean, I walked up to Rich today. I was like, "Hey, Rich, sign my playmat." But Liz was like, "Liz, will you sign my playmat? It would be so cool if you sign my playmat."
All right, guys. I think it's been a successful cast here. Want to call it a night?
I mean, it's only 8:55. What's the Astros score?
John and I go to bed.
Yeah, the sun set. What are we doing here? We need to go
fucking noobs. Well, good talk, everyone. This was our wrap-up of primarily Legacy and Eternal Weekend in general. We will have at least one more on Old School plus Vintage, possibly 3, and also a deck tech on Joe's Rip Helm deck, which was X3?
Yeah, or X4, I think.
Yeah, he pretty amazing for that deck, a deck that is... not among the deck people are familiar with. How about that?
It's like, yeah, I'm listening forward to everything you guys record from here.
So, yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for listening.